Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Behavior-Based Trapping Strategies. I'm Abby and I'm the Trap Support Specialist here at Pig Brig Trap Systems. Before we begin, I'd like to cover some brief housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available in the next few days. Please note that you can ask questions at any time during the webinar by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You may also utilize the chat feature to talk with other attendees. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Aaron Sumrall. You have our attention.
I do appreciate it. Thank y'all folks for joining me this afternoon. It's I know we got a long weekend to follow here and starting I guess tomorrow for a lot of folks out there. So we appreciate you taking your time and spending the evening with us to discuss pigs and some things that we may want to add to the toolbox to keep efficiencies high and so forth. So basically what we're going to cover tonight is just what that title slide says. We're going to talk about some behavior-based trapping strategies. So whenever the trapping can get tough certain times of the year, you kind of wonder why those pigs don't respond the way that they did whenever it was times of scarcity with nutrition or whatever the case may be. And it's just the things are good. Things are good for those pigs. And so now we have to look at other I guess opportunities there to incorporate into our trapping to keep those efficiencies high. And the top of the list that you need to think about in those times when those pigs are really living high on the proverbial hog, you got to look at the behavior. What's the behavior telling you, and the sounder dynamics and so forth. So what we're going to do tonight, kind of dive into that and get pretty deep in the weeds in some of these slides. But what we want to make sure that we start off is that making sure we cover a few just general considerations. And whenever we cover the information tonight, some of this may hit home exactly what you're seeing right now. Others may say, well, this is just not really what's out there for me right now. It's something I can store for later. But the main thing is that we need to think about regional tendencies. I mean, that's what we're seeing in certain parts of the country around the world may absolutely be not what you're looking at in your specific situation. So whenever we go into times like it is now where there's plentiful nutrition everywhere, it's greening up pretty much everywhere now, and got some new nutrition there that those pigs didn't have before. So they're really starting to pack on the pounds. Those little piglets that were born late winter, super early spring, they're actually now starting to really follow mom around and learn a lot of things about what she's telling them to eat and so forth. So think about those regional tendencies. Know that they do exist. The next thing is in the seasonal shifts. We are literally right in the throes of seasonal shifting from winter to spring. So we do have, and Abby sees this often now, and Tony and I do as well, and seeing people that have the questions. Man, the pigs are coming to the bait. What the heck happened? Well, what happened is spring. And what happened is you didn't do anything wrong. It's just that they've been eating the old proverbial cold cut sandwich all winter long, trying to just stay alive. And now they've got steaks all over everywhere, plenty to eat, plenty to snack on with some high calorie, high protein, highly nutritious diets. Bait leverage it may not be the greatest right now. And so just think about those seasonal shifts and don't panic. We'll talk a little bit more about the panic situations in the future in these next few slides, but also too think about in these considerations movement patterns. Those movement patterns will shift according to season, and sometimes they shift drastically according to season. They also shift drastically according to where they're at in their reproductive cycle, whether those animals or those sows are bred, have pigs, or they're open. Obvious land use practices. There's a heck of a lot of cedars going on right now. I think that right now where I live in East Texas, there's quite a few tractors on the road. You start moving around in those crop producing counties, and I think John Deere is the most common vehicle we see on the road right now. So land use practices are changing. What that means is that over the course of the winter, there may not have been a lot of activity as far as human activity on a given property or location, and those pigs got really accustomed to not having a lot of pressure and so forth, and then all of a sudden there's people everywhere. So that could cause those animals to be a little bit spooky for a little while until they get accustomed to those tractors running and people banging on equipment and so forth. So kind of keep those in mind. The other thing is sounder dynamics. Late during the wintertime, and whenever, especially in the fall, whenever there's plenty of mass production, you may saw a lot of boars, mature boars, running with those sounders, those females. They were in breeding mode and so forth, and now those pigs, those sows may have had those pigs by now, or really be heavy bred. They don't really want a boar around. Those boars are not needed. They don't want them to be around those piglets, and then those boars are not really so much enthused about being around those sows either. Nothing's coming into estrus, so they're moving on. The other thing to keep in mind right now too, there's a lot of turkey hunters out there, a lot of other things that are going on that people are enjoying the outdoors. Make sure you pay attention to your laws. Find out for sure if it's turkey season. So a lot of states out there restrict the baiting of pigs or during turkey season because it may be in your state illegal to bait turkeys during spring season. So if you are baiting pigs, make sure that you don't stick your turkey decoys up within a distance there that could give you a less than positive discussion with the game wardens. So make sure that you follow those laws. And then the other thing is following protocol very, very strictly whenever you got times of plenty. Times of plenty, those pigs are going to be tougher to catch and far less forgiving if you do make errors. So make sure that you follow those protocols to the letter, regardless of what you're using. A trap that you've made, know how to use that trap to the letter. Know what you got to do with your pig brigs whenever you put those pig brigs into function, and make sure you stay in contact with me and Abby and Tony and the rest of us at Pig Brig. Other things now with sounder dynamics specifically, we talked about those bred females with those piglets right so far a little bit, and those females right now, whenever they're out there with those piglets, their concern is let's make sure that we don't have coyotes and bobcats coming up here and sneaking one of my little bacon bits off. Okay, so those females are going to be extremely alert, aware of what's going on there because they are cognizant that those predators in the area could come in there and cause some trouble with those piglets. This is some of the other things that we need to draw attention to as well. Whenever people say, "Well, I see a bunch of single females out there that I think they probably are lactating because they don't look like they're in very good shape and there's plenty of nutrition." Where are the pigs at? Well, the pigs are with the ant. So whenever we think about this, if you drive down the highway and you see a cow laying down in a field in a pasture with 8 calves laying around her, she didn't have a litter of calves. She's babysitting. So we have a lot of people that'll tell us, well, those and there we go again. If y'all have listened to any of these webinars in the past, you'll know I make that analogy quite often about, that means that no, there's some serious education about to happen, really. So well, whenever we see that, the people say, well, that sow had 15 pigs. No, no, she probably didn't. She's probably babysitting for 3 or 4 more other females along with her own. And the reason for that is that if those piglets are being taken care of by one mature female, those other females can go out and forage and feed without having to make sure that they're so conscientious about what's going on around them. So they can feed more efficiently, they can get up as much nutrition as they can quickly, and then get back to those pigs. Then tomorrow's feeding cycle, the babysitter from today will then go out and feed tomorrow. There'll be a new babysitter taking charge and watching those pigs. Open female. And then the other thing with those bred females with piglets, if you see those piglets in there, you see those sows that they waddle instead of walk because they're so heavy bred. They typically don't stay in an area for a long period of time, and it goes back to that predator response. If they stay in an area for a long period of time, then those predators will start to hone in on those piglets and start hone in on those locations where they may be birthing, and so in order to keep those predators off balance, those females will move those piglets pretty frequently. So it could be that there's ample nutrition in that area, and all of a sudden the pigs just disappeared. And it's like, why? Why did they do that? Well, that's why. Is we don't want those predators honing in. Now compare that to open females. Open females, if they're still adequate nutrition, those females aren't going anywhere until they eat every last calorie in that whole landscape. So whenever you see those open females and they may have a little bit more condition on them, a little more cover, you can tell that they're not lactating. The teats are hugged up really close to their stomach, their underline, their belly. Then they're probably going to stick around there for quite a bit. The other is that we've got the consideration of boar and predators and so forth in that area. The same thing, we've talked about this, and we'll talk about it with regard to specific trapping strategy in a little while. Whenever you do have these sounder dynamic concerns with bred females or females with piglets, and then the boar interaction. We've talked a little bit about already with the predator considerations, and those will hold true. Those of y'all that live in my neighboring state, Louisiana, up further north where you have bears, they're starting to wake up. Whenever those bears start to wake up and they're hungry, they're looking for calories too, then they can cause those pigs to start moving pretty erratically, just for no apparent reason. Pigs disappear. Well, Yogi's on his feet again, folks. So we need to keep those things in mind. Increased boar numbers, what it may be in those situations. If you got those increased boar numbers, you may want to focus on hitting those boars harder and moving those out while those females are a little tougher to catch. We'll talk about that in just a minute about how to do that. Other situations that we see out there that's going to change up what we do, how we do it, are those bachelor groups, those little old kid groups of pigs, those teenage groups of boys out there, those male pigs. Whenever they get up to just about time that they're going into reproductive age, breeding age, those dominant females will kick them out of the sounder. And whenever they kick them out of the sounder, they don't know what to do. They've been taken everywhere they need to go to feed. They've been shown what to do, how to do it, and so forth and so on. Now there's no guidance. So those bachelor groups of boars will do some crazy stuff, and usually that's whenever we start seeing people calling about they had pig damage in their rose bushes or in their rose beds, or pig damage in their sodded lawn or something like that that they've never had before. Good chance that's probably a bachelor group of boars that's done come through that area, and they're just looking for anything easy to eat. The other thing, nutritional considerations, selected baits. Make sure that you think about what's out there on that landscape. So if you're right there and you're got a field full of soybeans out there, and those things are cranking with some high protein in there, and you throw a bunch of old yellow dent corn on the ground, and you wonder why the pigs won't come to your bait, well, it's 7 to 8% protein. Whenever they're looking at that soybean and all those other lush crops out there that could be pushing 25%. So they're going to go to where the calories are the best. They're going to go to where the nutrition is the highest quality that they can. And that way they can get way more out of less of it. So if you do get the chance to, as you're going through a field and you're not trapping, we never ever do we recommend that you shoot around a trap site. Don't shoot at any of the pigs that may be coming to a conditioning trap. You're just going to make trouble for yourself later on trying to get those pigs convinced to come back. But if you're out in a field, you're out somewhere around in that general area, and you see the chance that you can rehabilitate a pig, rehabilitate that pig, and then check those stomach contents. Those stomach contents kind of give you an idea of maybe what their nutritional selections are in that time of year, and we may be able to match that up a little bit closer to the bait that you may want to select. That will be a completely different presentation in the future, that's going to be solely based on baiting and bait techniques and so forth and so on. But if there's too much nutrition available out there, my advice to you would be, and Pig Brig is a whole, Tony as well, Abby is in there with us, is that pump those brakes. Don't make a tough situation impossible by going out there and try to force those pigs to do something that they don't want to do because you've got a lower quality bait and that they've responded to, and now they're not. So we get that call all the time. The three of us get it all the time. It's like, man, the pigs are here. What do I got to do to get them to come to the bait? Come to the well. The first questions we're going to ask is, what other foods available in the area? And quite likely, the recommendation is going to be, do nothing. Do not do anything. Go enjoy your kids' little league game for a couple of weeks. Do something out there. Take your attention off those pigs because the nutrition is there. Those pigs are not going to come to a lower quality bait selection whenever they've got super high forage that's readily available. The other thing is super huge. Again, too, we've talked about making sure that you pay attention to the most finite details in those toughest trapping periods of the year. is consistency and timing on what you do and how you do it. Is look at what those sounders are telling you. If you set over a field and you see sounders with a bunch of little bitty pigs in there, those sounders make the same rotation annually. They just speed it up or slow it down, whether or not there's presence or absence of little piglets. So if you're looking at a field and there's a lot of little bitty piglets in that group, they're in that sounder there, you may want to think, now, where are these pigs likely to go when they leave here? You may not be able to catch them at point A, but you can catch them at point B, because they're going to rotate the same as they did um, in earlier rotation. So where did they go? Timing, as far as and consistency on baiting, conditioning, and so forth. Condition bait at the same time every day, because again, too, if there's increased human activity out there that's throwing them off a little bit on behavior, and then you add to that with inconsistency on the conditioning and the timing, that could just make a bad situation a little bit worse. So be consistent when you bait and so forth. We did have a question this year about, can we bait a little earlier in the day because some things are just not lining up to get out there late before dark or anything like that. This would be the time of year we would be more likely to say, yeah, it probably is not going to hurt you too bad. The reason that we hesitate about baiting early in other times of the year is antler bucks. We want to make sure that if we've got those if we bait those traps, and you want to minimize the amount of time non-target species have access to that bait before you expect pigs to show up. So if you've got antlered bucks there, we can go into this again too in the later presentation, but we want to shorten that time frame. Right now, obviously, those antlers are on the ground. I actually found a couple of sheds over the weekend, so we're not as much worried about those deer coming in. The only thing is that if you've got a lot of deer in the area and you bait too early in the day, those deer may clean that bait up before the pigs have a chance to get there. So that's a game time situation for your location specifically. Then additional considerations, obviously, agriculture production, big time concerns there. We'll talk more about baiting strategies later on with regard to agriculture production going on in your immediate area. Then looking at leveraging selected baits. You may take that same standard yellow corn out there that we've used forever, and it's cheap. Okay, it's easy to find. There's places everywhere that's got it, so forth. Is what can we add to that corn? It might make it a little bit more enticing. So we're thinking about, how do we leverage maybe a bait that we do have? And again, too, this is going to be a game time situation. Do you really need it or do you not? Which comes into the next point on additives and attractants. For me, the additives and attractants, I'm not really a big fan of, and it's not because some don't work. It's just the fact that if you read the conditions and you know whenever you're going to have good bait leverage, that's whenever I focus my time. If I know that I'm not going to have good bait leverage, I know that conditions are challenging. Rather than trying to throw everything but the kitchen sink at these pigs to get them to come to my trap sites, I'm going to pump the brakes, back away from those pigs, use that as a chance to maintenance my traps, to look at my records, to do some other things until that poor condition passes, where I can get back in there, where I can get optimum bait leverage. The one thing that I will say about is, as far as attractants are concerned, in the South, if you're in the South where I'm at, and you have fire ants, then this will hit home for you. In the South, it gets hot, it gets dry, and we have fire ants. So if you're using attractants, try to steer clear of using gel-based attractants in the summertime in the South. The reason for that is the main component of a gel-based attractant is water. And if you put water on the ground in any form, in gel, whatever, and on the ground in the summertime in the South, those fire ants are going to cover it up. Well, sometimes they'll make it to the attractant before you can make it back to the truck. So once those fire ants are on that gel, then pigs are not going to eat that. So if you're using attractants in the summertime, use something that's going to be more a water soluble, or an oil. And so that, if you want to use those gel-based attractants in the wintertime, fine, go for it. If that's what you feel that you need to do. But in those additives and those other options is your water solubles, things like your Kool-Aid powders and things of that nature are great. The only difference that I steer clear of the water soluble powders is that whenever those um mixed packages are absorbed into the water, obviously water soluble. It's then put on the outside of your bait. Okay. Whenever you get a quarter of an inch of rain, it's going to wash it off. Whereas instead of me using, say, grape or strawberry or whatever else kind of a water soluble powder of sorts, then I find the equivalent in an oil. Like we can find grapeseed oil, we can find other oils that are out there, peanut oil. Okay, is now I will use those oils to treat that bait. That way, whenever that oil adheres to that grain, to that corn, it can rain all day long and it's still going to have that attracting odor to that bait itself. So think about some of that as you're moving through, and then we'll talk about the pheromones here in just a minute. But pheromones can work fantastic for you in some situations and horrible for you in others. So moving through in this and the trapping strategies now, so we're going to put some of this together, is that pre-planting before the seed goes in the ground, which there's not many places that the seed isn't already in the ground. And I went through Central Texas, out San Antonio area just a few days ago, and some of the corn out there is already a foot tall. And I know that in other parts of the South, it's the same. So pre-planting, we're pretty much past that. And so you got sounder competition in that pre-planting situation. Bait leverage is phenomenal. So other things to consider there is that in those pre-planning situations where sounder competition is pretty outrageous, is that you may need to think about using two pig brigs within 100 yards or something of that nature, that multi-trap set. Because if those sounders are competitive, and you put the trap where a dominant sounder will come to that trap first, then those other subordinate sounders are not going to enter that trap. So it may be that a multi-trap set is what you need to think about. We'll talk about multi-trap sets in just a minute too, with regard to those bores and such. But the multi-trap sets could be that again too, if you've got a smart trap, is that if that trap has been performing for you in the past, and you're looking at catch numbers there, where now we're just catching solid bores. We get this question all the time. It's like, I know there's females in the area. We see females on the camera. Females are coming to the conditioned corn and so forth and so on, but all we're catching solitary boars. Well, that makes sense. If those females are bred or they got pigs and a boar gets to that trap first, those females are not going to go into that trap. So in that situation, a multi-trap set where two pig brigs or a metal trap and a pig brig within 100 meters of one another, 100 yards of one another, will do you good. That way, if you get the chance to drop that gate or catch that big boar in your pig brig, do it. Because then if you have a second trap that's been conditioning also, that's only 100 yards away, then the females or the other one is going to go right there. Okay. The other things too about right with sows with little pigs is they are much more cautious about getting on their feet earlier and so forth. And as closer we get to summer, it's going to be even more so, because they get on their feet and they get at that twilight time. At that twilight time, yeah, those predators can see those pigs a lot easier and so forth. The eyesight of a pig is not that great. It's still plenty sufficient, but the eyes of a coyote or a bobcat are much better. So they may wait until much later after dark to get those pigs on their feet and get moving around, just because of predator response. That's why your boars are getting to your traps sooner, is because those dudes are hungry and they're waiting for the sun to go down. And as soon as the sun goes down, they're on their feet and they know exactly where they're going to go. So they beat those female sounders to those trap sites. So multi-trap sets is going to be something I think would be definitely worth considering. And other places there's pinch points. Okay, we got farming going on heavy all over everywhere. Is those pinch points could very well be a fence line with some brush along that fence line. Think about where you need to trap in those travel corridors, those pinch points, fence lines, ecotones for a comparison, I guess, out there. If you're in the South, in the timber producing parts of the South, that could be as much as a forested area, pine or hardwood, and then a clear cut. Well, that ecotone is the dividing line between the two. It could be a forest land and a prairie. That dividing line between the two is the ecotone. Those animals walk the transitional locations readily, because typically in that ecotone is going to be less vegetation in the way, because one side of it is shaded. And so it doesn't allow the sun to get to the ground. So it takes a little bit longer time to vegetate up there where it's going to make it tougher to walk through. And then also too, think about vegetation types. Look at some of those vegetation types that as it gets hotter, gets closer to the summertime, look at some of those that are vegetation types that are more brushy, that's going to hold shade a heck of a lot better, that may not be as tall, because we get in the summertime and you've got 80-foot tall trees out there. Yeah, there's canopy, but there's a heck of a lot of opportunity for the sun to get through that. So whenever you're looking at vegetation types, the hotter it gets in the summertime, think about little shorter vegetation, thicker canopy cover, where those pigs can motor through that pretty easy. Rotating trap sites and so forth is that's going to determine by your observation. We talked about this already too in there. If you're seeing sows that with little pigs or bred sows, you may have to rotate trap sites pretty readily. So think about that. That's what I tell people. If you got one pig brig, think about 3 sites for that one pig brig trap. And the reason for that is because when you think they're going to show up at point A, then they will, but they may rotate through it so fast because of that sounder dynamic that you need to be ready to catch them at location B or even maybe C. So that's the beauty of the pig brig, is that as those pigs move with it, and kind of let those pigs tell you what their flaw is. And in that situation, the flaw is obviously going to be that they're moving fast. And if they're moving fast and staying in locations for shorter periods of time, that means when they come into a new area, they may not be as aware of what's been there, because they haven't been there themselves to know what the changes are. So talking about the multi-trap sets, we've discussed that before, but in places there that you do have a trap that's performed exceptionally well for you, I would be very, very hesitant to say to ever move that. But at certain times of the year, sounder dynamics may dictate that, hey, that's what you've got to do. You need to make sure that you go out there and add a second trap, or maybe even a third trap that's within a given area, based on what that sounder dynamic is. Compounding trap types, we already talked about that as well. The only thing that I will not say, we don't ever promote it, ever push it, or anything like that, is we are in the business of eradication. We are in the business of large scale rehabilitation of wild pigs. So I don't talk about traps that you can put between the wheel wells of your pickup truck and shut the tailgate. Okay. That's not going to get you anywhere as far as removing large numbers of pigs. And I think y'all know what I'm talking about with regard to, if a trap fits between the wheel wells of your pickup and you shut the tailgate, you're using box traps. Okay. We're not gonna navigate those waters just because of sheer efficiencies. So overlapping sounders, looking at protocol, what I do to use the pig brig different than I do with other corral trap systems. And this is where protocol is very, very imperative, that you follow the right protocol for the right tool. And I tell people whenever we go at places, and I know Tony does as well, is that you can open up the toolbox on my truck and I've got about 5 different hammers in there. Well, why do I have 5 different hammers in the toolbox? Because each one of them has a specific protocol, a specific usage, and I use it according to what the protocol is. So if you're going out there and you're using a corral based protocol for a pig brig system, you're not going to get the efficiency out of it that you could. And what I mean by that is, if you get 3 locations that you can put your pig brig at, then I let the pigs tell me where it's going to go. And what I'm looking for, if I've got 3 locations that I've already identified, I want to know how big the sounders are and when do they show up at that location. How many sounders do I have overlapping? So for example, if I've got three sounders overlapping at all 3 locations, where I'm going to go with my pig brig trap is where that biggest sounder comes in last. And the reason for that is, whenever those pigs are hungry and they're moving, they're going to stay in that same rotation. So if you got enough bait in the trap, again, this is Randy. Randy will definitely make this the first comment that he says whenever you talk to Randy. Use plenty of bait, and there is no truer words than that. Whenever we're talking about pig brig protocol, is use plenty of bait, because if you've got 3 sounders that are overlapping in that area, then that smaller sounder, that subordinate sounder, comes in, they eat, they feed, they get in that trap. There's plenty there to keep them satisfied, but there's also enough bait left after they feed that there's going to be the leverage for that larger sounder to come in as well. And now the captured smaller sounder many times turns into the bait. And so we see those overlapping sounders being used pretty much against them. So quite often you'll see we've got libraries of video where we have gotten multiple sounders caught in a single trap event, because that's watching where the sounders overlap and how they do that. Of course, with the comparison to corral traps, I want to put that corral trap where I can catch the biggest sounder first. I want to make the biggest bang for my buck as soon as I can. So completely different trap usages based on the trap type. And so definitely use Pig Brig protocol on a Pig Brig trap. So if you're using any other trap system, make sure you follow the protocol for that trap system, or you're probably not going to be as efficient as what you need to be. Incorporate vegetation. The closer we get to summer, we definitely need to do that. The only time that I've ever had to move a trap after I've caught pigs, or move a trap, is whenever pigs died from exposure. I did have one time that we had some folks that didn't like the fact that we were rehabilitating pigs in the area. They found pigs in my trap and they shot them in the trap. By the time I got there, the vultures were on the trap. It stunk just like what you would think it would be, and I had to move the trap. But for me personally, I've caught pigs in the same trap in the same location for as many as 19 nights in a row and never moved the trap. Okay, so it can be done, but incorporating vegetation is going to be a big deal to that. You got to keep those pigs cool in the summertime. Now, whenever I said that I caught those pigs in up to 19 nights in the same location, that's not the recommendation. Okay, so intensity and duration is what we need to think about. The only reason we were looking at how many nights you can catch is we're wanting to find out where the break even is, or where's the return start to diminish whenever pigs are caught. And so what we did is we trapped in 30, 40 different locations in a 30-day period, in a month-long period, 30 days, and we just plotted when did we catch those pigs. And a little over 97% of the pigs were caught in the first 5 nights. So that's something to keep in mind. And that does not matter about trap type. It was the same across all trap types. The 97+% was caught in the first 5 nights. So what that means is that whenever we do trapping intensity and duration, we hit those pigs hard and then we back away. Okay, so the analogies, the examples of this is like a boxing match. So why do they have a boxing match that's 10 rounds that are 3 minutes long instead of just one 30-minute round? Well, after about 3 minutes, those boxers are not going to be good for much. Okay. But so what they do is they back away between rounds, they refresh, they kind of get a drink of water, so forth and so on, and then go back at it again. But also during that break, is where is the coach? Where's that boxing coach at? He's in the ear of that boxer saying, okay, we've seen this. This is what we're going to do when we go back. So whenever you back away after that short, high intensity punch at those pigs, you back away, but you analyze what did you see whenever you were trapping? How do you need to go back and hit them again whenever you return to that trapping location, or do you need to move traps? But sometimes I don't back away but 2 weeks, and when I back away a couple of weeks, those pigs are right there, they're ready to go again. But it keeps them off balance, they don't learn. But if you keep pushing those pigs, then you're going to end up pushing them away, and efficiencies are going to be extremely low. So shy pigs, all the time whenever I'm working with shy pigs, I lift my Pig Brig completely up off the ground, and that way those pigs can see all the way through that trap. If there's shy pigs in the area, you want to make sure they can see through it. The other thing we'll do with trap shy pigs is that I always, no matter if the pigs are shy or not, my standard protocol for what I do when I start conditioning pigs is I start with about 90% of the bait on the outside of the trap so I can introduce those pigs to the trap. 10% of the bait's on the inside. I do not move more bait to the inside of that trap until the pigs show me that they'll eat that 10% on the inside of the trap. If I try to force those pigs to go in that trap, they're going to go away. So we see that very, very often as people put a trap up, regardless of trap type. It doesn't matter. It's the brigs, it's the corral traps, and so forth. They'll put a trap up and immediately put all the bait in the trap, and then they're like, "Man, I know pigs are in the area. They just won't go in the trap." Well, yeah, very likely. And the reason for that is those pigs are aware of what's in their habitat, what's in their environment, and now all of a sudden there's a new big structure there, and they're like, "What the heck is this?" So they'll stay back. Using shams. This is something I was talking with Abby about a little before the event this evening. is yeah, fake those pigs. All right, use your poker hand, use your poker face. What we do when we use shams, and I don't know if Mark is on here tonight or not, but Mark Land's the director of the GACD pig program, and Mark uses some shams. If you're on the Facebook owners page, he posted some things about some shams that he was using with success, not just a couple of weeks ago in Georgia. Some of the shams that he's used, as well as myself, could be trash bags. We'll zip tie trash bags to about 4 posts within that circumference of the trap, let the wind pop those bags, and it desensitizes those pigs to sight, sound, and smell. And then you can work that in one net in 3 locations, allowing those shams to be able to desensitize those pigs to that location. The other one that is exceptionally effective as far as using a sham is you can go to any sporting goods location that sells fishing supplies and get a one of those minnow seines. Those, you can get them from 20-foot to 80-foot long minnow seines. Very, very small mesh. They're black, so forth and so on. I will use those minnow seines and attach them to the outside of the post and let those pigs get accustomed to feeling that net, working with that net, so forth and so on. And as that sham is conditioning those pigs, you're working at another site. Once you finish at that site with the sham net on the outside of the post, now you can put your pig brig on the inside of the post. Don't take the sham down. Leave the sham up. Put your pig brig on the inside of your post, and you can immediately go into catching. So use those shams for you. One of the things I do whenever I'm trapping for boars, we talked about this earlier quickly, is if I'm trapping for boars, is I will, and my kids, whenever, since they were little, and they're well old now or older, that since they were little, we showed domestic pigs. We always had pigs in the barn, and so what we do is from that point on, and even still today, if I know I have a large number of boars in the area that I've knocked those female numbers down, I'll go into those locations where I can get a domestic female. And as soon as those females stand up and put their head in the water trough, they start to pee. Well, whenever they're peeing and they're calm enough to feed, the pheromones in that urine are completely calm. So whenever I've got shy pigs or I'm trying to trap boars, and it doesn't matter if it's an estrus pig or not. If it's a female, that's all I'm looking for. And then I'll take that urine and I'll and soak it in sponges or rags or whatever and throw them over into the trap. And it's just like a white-tailed deer checking a scrape line. It's obvious that the doe is not there, but they're still going to come and check it anyway. So it's the same way with boars. Is I'll soak those sponges, throw them into the trap, and then I'll take another sponge, one more, maybe 2 more sponges, soak those sponges in urine, and put them up on the top of that pig brig trap cap. And the reason I do that is elevating that bait, just like that last bullet is. I put that bait up on the top of that trap cap and let the wind push that pheromone of that female downwind. So if you got trap shy pigs and they can smell a calming pheromone, whitetail hunters use it all the time, is playing the pheromone game. It works in a lot of places on the pigs as well. I've caught in a single pig brig catch. In a single pig brig catch, I caught as many as 13 boars in a single catch event. That's all catching individual boars. They were not running in a sounder. So it was over the course of about 6 or 6.5 hours that I caught 13 boars, and the only thing used was urine. So other things to elevate and bait is if you're using fermented bait or anything like that, same thing. Put it on a rag, sponge, anything like that. Get it above that pig brig and let the wind work for you. You'll notice those pigs are going to start coming in from downwind and so forth. So other than that, that's something I was wanting to try to make sure that I didn't waste a lot of your time this evening trying to be pretty precise on the information. And that's all she wrote for the content side of this too. So we're going to kick this back toward Tony and Abby and see if anybody's got some questions in the Q&A, Abby.
Yes, thank you so much, Aaron, for your presentation. It was really great, really informative, and we really appreciate your time here tonight. But now we're going to move on to some questions. If you haven't already, please drop your questions in the Q&A widget at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we're going to get to as many as possible. So I'm going to hand it over to you and Tony to answer some questions.
All right. So, Aaron, looks like the first question we've got here is, do you recommend baiting when you're not getting any sign or when there's not any sign around? They've taken nearly 400 hogs out of 640 acres, and they're not seeing but about 1 or 2 pigs on camera a week.
Do in situations like that is instead of using bait, a lot of times I want to know if there's presence or absence of pigs in an area. Is to use a rug with oil and put it on a corner post or put it on a tree or put it somewhere else, and then put a camera on that rug, because that those pigs are coming through into a new area, especially if it's a new sounder coming into a new area. Pigs are going to have bugs. They're going to, especially going into the summertime. Those pigs are going to have ticks. They're going to have fleas. They're going to have lice. So what they're looking for is a way to get rid of that, those external parasites. So in the summertime, I heavily use oil rubs to tell presence or absence. And then again, too, with those cameras, you can tell, is it a sounder or is it the old same old boar that you just haven't been able to catch for the last 4 or 5 years? So they're going to use those rubs. It makes it super easy to check presence or absence over a huge area in a very, very short period of time. Just set them side by side, take the kids with you, and go drive around and check those oil rubs, and it'll be obvious if there's mud on the rub, you got pigs in the area. So just check your cameras, and plan accordingly. The thing I would tell you though, Tony, we talk about this quite often about using rubs, is that if you're going to eat the pig, we would not recommend using burnt motor oil, because we have found burnt motor oil residue in the meat tissue of the pigs. So if you're going to use an oil, and you think in the future you may end up using that pig as barbecue material, then I would use fish grease or fry grease or cooking oil that's been used in the kitchen. And that's going to do the same thing for getting rid of those external parasites, and it's not going to give you any issues about lubing up your inside if you eat pigs with a little 10W40 in it. So, anything else you want to add to that, Tony?
Not that I can think of. I know that it looks like the next question that we've got, and it seems like we're getting quite a few questions coming in, which is awesome. Next question is, what is the best way to remove trapped pigs?
The first thing I'm going to say is you check with your state laws. Some places, there's a handful of states out there that will allow you to move those pigs alive, but there are very, very specific locations where those pigs can be moved alive. As far as removing pigs out of the trap, I am definitely a rehabilitation specialist. So what I mean by rehabilitation, the only way that you're going to stop pigs from causing damage is to rehabilitate that pig with a hot lead injection to the noggin. And so whenever we do that, the only thing that I ever use as a firearm is a 22 long rifle. Sometimes I'll use a 22 mag, but I'd never use hollow point ammunition. Okay. I know an earshot is very ethical. That'll take that pig down very quickly with an earshot. But the problem is, even with a 22, it's very likely to get a pass all the way through the head of that pig with a 22 long rifle. And now we got to worry about it. You're going to hit a post on the opposite side of the trap. So there's a concern there. The other thing is that whenever I'm removing pigs from the trap, is I make sure that I get the shot that I want, which is going to be waiting for that pig to look at me. I don't care which one it is. My huckleberry is going to be the one that gives me the first look. And so it's going to be an X in that pig's head from one ear to the opposite eye, and it's going to draw an X on the plane on the face of that pig above the plane of the eyes. That's my point of impact. And the reason for that is that projectile is going to be absorbed by the body. And the other reason there is that there's not going to be two potential holes that's pouring blood. So whenever we do that, we'll shoot that first pig goes down, and after that pig stops moving, then the rest of those pigs in that trap will see that as a calm animal, and they'll go to it. It's just like people in a chaotic room. Whenever people are in a chaotic room, whomever is the calmest person in the room, that's who people congregate to. They're looking for something to keep them calm. Anyway, take those pigs out. Before you start to remove those pigs from the trap, do a victory lap around your pig brig. Okay. And the reason I say do a victory lap around your pig brig is look to see if those eyes of those pigs are open or closed. If those eyes are open, then yeah, those pigs are probably euthanized, and they're gone. If those pigs have their eyes closed, give him a courtesy round. Okay. So if those eyes are closed, that pig has not expired. The other thing to look for, we're getting out of the winter time, so it's not much there as far as an observation, unless Devin's on here from Canada, is that whenever you have pigs expired in the wintertime, sometimes you'll see the steam come out of their mouth in a constant flow. And what that is just the air leaving their lungs in a constant flow. Whereas if you see the steam coming out of that pig's mouth and pulses, that's because that pig is still breathing. So sometimes I have seen pigs with their eyes open. You think they're expired, but then you see that steam of that cold air, that air leaving that body and pulses. They're not gone yet. So just wait. What we do when we remove those pigs out of the trap, one, you can either pull the seam that's on your pig brig and then go in through that open section there, remove those pigs through that seam, but make sure before you pull that cable out of the seam of your pig brig that you pay attention to how it was seamed together to begin with. Because when you go back to seam it back in to put it back together, you want to make sure you do it the same way the next time, or put it back together. What I do, and I'm not going to stand up in front of the camera for you folks, just not going to do it. This isn't dinner in the show. Is my physique? I am not crawling underneath that net. Okay, so what I'm going to do whenever those pigs have expired, I'm going to unclip your pig brig from about 3 or 4 posts, and then let that net lay down to the ground, and then I'll just walk right over the top of it and remove those dispatched pigs. The key for me to be able to catch pigs in the same trap multiple nights in a row is that look for any feces that's still in the trap. Okay, blood is not as much of an issue as the feces is. Now, that's something I make sure that I carry a flat nose shovel with me, anything like that. If there's any coagulated blood in there, anything that's there that's in large quantities, if the trap floor is wet, I stomp the blood into the trap floor. If the trap floor is dry, I'll kick the dust over the blood, and the soil microbes will break that blood down to keep it from having that rotted, decayed smell quite as bad. So the other thing that I'll do is say if I catch a sounder of 30 pigs, I don't care if it was on night 1. If I catch a sounder of 30 pigs, there's going to be a lot of gunfire. There's going to be a lot of blood. There's going to be a lot of activity. Rather than going back and immediately setting that trap to catch again that very next night, I'll go ahead and put it back into conditioning mode and condition it one more time just to make sure that I didn't really scare the heck out of those pigs. Because if you keep going back at them and there's been a lot of activity, you could push them away. So if I catch those large catches, then I'll hit them. Then as soon as that catch is taken care of, go back to conditioning for a day or two and just see what those pigs are going to tell you if they're ready to go back in that net or not. But extremely good question. We could talk about that one all night long. So
Yeah,
anything else,
absolutely.
Tony?
So we've got another one. Someone was asking specifically, what exactly do you mean by rehabilitating pigs?
There you go. The rehabilitation of a pig is I get asked the question quite often, usually from media and things like that, is why do I hate pigs as bad as I do? And the answer is that you got the question wrong to begin with. I don't hate the pigs. Okay. I think they're a fascinating animal. What I hate is the damage. So whenever we talk about rehabilitation, we have to stop a negative effect, a negative concern there. So whenever we think about our friends and family members that may have an addiction, we don't hate the friend or the family member. We hate the addiction. Well, I don't hate the pig. I hate the damage. So the only way, unfortunately, to rehabilitate a pig, just have to stop his heart. I mean, that's the hard truth of the matter. So rehabilitating that pig is just dispatching those animals.
Absolutely. And it looks like we've got a couple of questions in here that are asking about using the urine as a bait or an attractant. So one we've got here says, how do you know where a female is going to pee? Or do you have a water supply near the trap? And then an additional one says, can the urine be from any female or does it have to be an estrus?
Excellent question on both of them. First of all, is I never, ever, ever, ever take urine out of a wild animal, a wild female, ever. Because the only time I've got access to a wild female is after she's been rehabilitated. Well, the pheromone in that urine is going to be a stress pheromone. Okay. So if that stress pheromone is in that urine, you're going to make it 10 times worse. So the only time that I ever, ever, ever use a urine with the pheromone approach is whenever I have access to domestic females that are hand fed by people. And so whenever those pigs usually lay around all day long, not doing too much, whenever they're fed and they get up to go put their head in a feed trough, they're peeing at the same time. So it's super simple, just to stand there with an old mason jar, a coffee can, or whatever. Just make sure don't use your coffee cup. If you do, mark it. But it's that you make sure that you catch that out of a collection device, because if their heads in the trough, they're peeing and it's shooting out like a water fountain. Okay, never use urine out of a wild animal, especially one that's been shot in a trap or anything, because that stress is off the charts, and so you're definitely going to make things worse for you. Very good thought there, very good observation there. We never ever use, if you're using water as a bait, I would strongly advise against that. We have had situations in the past that people have used water trough inside the traps, and it could be a corral trap, it could be a pig brig, whatever the case may be. It's happened is those pigs, whenever they come into water in the summertime, yeah, they'll water in it, but then they're also going to lay in it. Whenever they lay in that water, they're going to defecate in it, they're going to urinate in it, and any diseases that potentially could be held by that pig are now going to be into that water trough. So yeah, you may go and drain the water out of that water trough before you go put it back out for the sheep to drink, but most of the time people don't go in there and adequately disinfect that trap, making sure that's good and clean and so forth. If you got a pond, a little trough there that some people will put out for the deer that's dug into the ground, I still would not put that trap around the that water source, because again too, they're going to be dropping a lot of urine in it, a lot of feces in it. Here come your deer back around. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that we know that pigs can move the prions that lead to chronic wasting disease and cervids in your deer species. So I would try to make sure that you do not draw your pigs for any prolonged period of time around anything that the deer could be using as a water source. Good questions, though.
Absolutely. So, and here's another question, which I'll go ahead and answer this one. They're asking, how do you keep raccoons from the trap? And so there's a couple of methods to keeping the raccoons away. And then there's also a method that we recommend to help prevent damage to the trap system as well. So keeping raccoons from the trap, we did a lot of research here recently on a capsaicin blend that we like to spray over our bait. And this works well for bears, it works well for deer, it works well for raccoons. So as far as the recipe goes, I don't remember exactly the specifics, but feel free to call our trap support and they'll send you that recipe and you can go ahead and get that put together and spray it over your corn. Just be very careful with it because if you're not wearing any gloves or anything like that, if it gets on your fingers and you touch your eyes or anything like that, it will burn. And I'm speaking from experience. So we've got another method.
That experience too, Tony.
Yeah, yeah. We've got another method, which we sometimes will use liquid fence as well. That tends to help a little bit with raccoons, where you'll mix it at 2 times the concentrate and spray that over your bait as well, just like you would do with that capsaicin. But our preferred method is just using, as far as not keeping raccoons away, but preventing trap damage, is what we call the raccoon ramp. And so what you'll do is when you have your trap system set, that net is going to be touching the ground all the way around. And so a lot of times those raccoons will actually go under the net, they'll feed on the corn or the bait, and then they'll get lazy and they won't want to climb back out. And so a lot of times they can cause some damage. So what we recommend is you take a stick or a 2x4 or something like that, and you attach it to the top cap or the top line of that trap and allow it to lay all the way down into the bottom of the trap. That allows for an easy spot, almost like a bridge where those raccoons can come in and out of that trap system. Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think that I would throw in there in that discussion too, Tony, is that if you're using fermented bait, fermented corn, anything like that, don't throw that fermented slurry through the pig brig trap wall. We've had some before that it's both pig and raccoon concerns, bears as well, is if you throw that slurry of bait through that mesh, through that pig brig siding, those pigs, those raccoons, bears, whatever, will start to chew on that location where that fermentation slurry has soaked into that mesh of that trap system. So if you're going to use that fermented baits, then I mean, like I said earlier, as far as removing pigs, unclip a few of those the pig brig from a few of those T-posts, step over it, and then go put the bait in location where it needs to be, and don't let that slurry get into the mesh of that pig brig.
Yeah, yeah, and it looks like we've got one more question here, and I'm not sure if they're asking about using the oil rub or if they're talking about using the urine, but they asked if you use a rope rug or just hang rags that are soaked. So um, I guess you can answer that according
Yeah,
to
we'll
both of those
hit
options.
quick. Yeah, we'll hit quick on both of them there. As far as on the rub is concerned, the oil rub, you can go to any flooring location that sells carpet, and they're looking for ways to get rid of that carpeting. I mean, if you want to go to any home decor location and buy a $10 welcome rug or something that you would find on the front porch, that work perfectly fine. I've used burlap sacks before. Those just the old standard burlap sack. Anything that you can pour that oil on, and it will hold it in place for a long enough period of time. So just any kind of carpeting, any kind of heavier cloth. It could even be if you got it, guys. If y'all can sneak out one of your wives' heavy, good quality bath towels, those things are a gem. They'll hold that water. They'll hold that oil for quite a while. And but just don't. Yeah, plead the fifth if anything happens and she asks where that towel went. The other thing on the urine though is what I use on there is that's the sponges. That's the cloths there. It could be a shop rag, anything like that that's just going to be able to hold that moisture, because one, you don't want to put a great big cloth on top of your trap or anything like that to use the wind. So I'll take those sponges and soak that sponge, hang it up. Another thing that you can do, and I've used it before too, is in the hunting sections there, you see those cotton wicks that they use to dip the doe pee in for the deer hunting. Those cotton wicks work fine. Anything that's going to hold moisture, but that pheromone is going to be so strong that it does not need to be the volume of what you would have in an oil rub or something of that nature. So it's just something small to hold that in there. Other things you can do, and again, make sure you can wear you some gloves if you're going to do this, is take and to freshen it up is just get your standard little cotton balls and put your urine on the cotton balls and throw some into the trap, is just to kind of freshen it up as you go through the process. But yeah, start knocking on doors of who you know may have some domestic pigs out there. That can definitely pay you back in some major ways.
It looks like another question came in during that explanation. It says, have you found by killing pigs in the trap, will that cause others not to come back?
No. And I have not. That's when I've caught pigs as many as 19 nights in a row. And the main thing for me, one is bless your heart. And y'all know if you're in the South what it means whenever somebody says bless your heart. Okay. Bless your heart if you got to use a deer rifle to shoot a pig at 13 feet. Okay. So that's something that we use a 22, just a long rifle. That way, one, it's a quieter. Okay. And then we don't have tons of fluid that's all over that trap. But my thing is that before I bait that trap again, after I've removed those dispatched pigs out of that trap, before I bait that trap again, go back again, make sure that if there's any intact feces in there, scoop it up, get it out of there. Any blood, stomp the blood into the floor if it's in just a lot of volume. But I don't. I can catch pigs following that protocol. Hit them quick. Don't trap for more than 4 or 5 days. Once you caught that first pig, the clock starts when you catch that first pig. And don't try to push them more than about 4 more nights and back away. Keep the intensity high. Back away for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and then go back and hit them again. And I never have trouble keeping those efficiencies high like that. And also, if you've got 3 locations for your one pig brig net, is that whenever you finish that 5-day sequence at trap location 1, then you've got trap location 2 and 3 already conditioning pigs, and you can move that net and keep those efficiencies high again. So by the time you trap those other 2 locations, you're coming back to trap site 1, those pigs are conditioned, ready to go in. So it's all methodical, systematic approach, and and again too, you following the Pig Brig protocol and how that trap can be used. And your efficiencies will be good. But yeah, extremely good questions. And no, I do not have any trouble catching pigs in there in multiple nights as long as we follow protocol.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that seems like that's all the questions. Thank you again, Aaron, for your time tonight and for giving this talk. Like we mentioned earlier, this webinar is recorded, so it should be coming out probably within the next week or two, and that'll be coming out via email. But thank you, everyone, for attending tonight, and y'all have a great night.
Have a good Easter weekend.